Howdy everyone, we are live here with another live stream because that's what live streams are. Howdy, my name is Jeff Bartsch and this is Story Greenlight, where we're all about helping you as content creators turn up the impact of your work, connect with your audience and change people's lives, and we do that by talking about creative video editing and powerful storytelling. So that's what we're doing here. And this is what we are talking about today. We're talking about the storyteller's secret weapon. And here's where we start. The stories that create the most impact on the world always involve the idea of change. And to get that kind of an impact in a story that we're telling, you have to plan out that change on purpose. And so the secret weapon of the storyteller today is a huge, if not the number one tool in order to do that. So that's the idea of what we're going to be talking about. And it is accessible to anyone, no matter how advanced you are or how new you actually are or you feel you are. This is powerful stuff. It will work for you, and this will be a big deal in terms of your storytelling skills. So I'm looking forward to digging into this with you. I'm going to check to make sure that picture and sound. Howdy. I'm just going to assume that picture and sound is good unless someone says otherwise. So if something's up, just drop a comment. Just drop a comment here. So in case you have not, in case we've not yet met, my name is Jeff Bartsch, and this is my background. I've built my career editing television here in Hollywood, and I've participated in literally thousands of hours of finished television, and I've learned a lot along the way about telling stories and how they work. And I've learned a lot about teaching and helping other people do that. And that's the thing that I love. Absolutely love telling stories, and I love helping empower people to tell the stories that they care about the most, people like you. So that's what I'm about. That's a little bit about my background. And so if you're new here to the channel and you've not yet hit the subscribe button, what are you waiting for? Hit that red button and also hit the bell next to it so you get notifications for videos when they come available. I drop new content once a week. As of right now, I drop it once a week on Wednesdays, Pacific time. And so, frankly, I don't create enough content for all notifications to get annoying. So there you go. And let's see. Yeah, so subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get moving into this. So here's a question for you. What kind of movies or TV shows or online content keep you completely locked into watching it, and why? While you're thinking about that, I'll tell you something that my wife and I love to watch. And the irony is, I actually spend my entire day making television. This is my edit bay. My current gig is in North Hollywood, California, and I love sparkling water. That's random. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I drink a lot of water. And so the thing is, like, I spend all my day in this room by myself with a computer, playing with the Lego building blocks of picture and sound and music and story. And the last thing I want to do is go home and turn the damn thing on. And so I will say, though, so as a result, I watch very little TV or movies, and I watch some online content, specifically some online YouTube content. So if there's some stuff that you folks really, really love, I would love to know, because basically I'm relying on some of your input to see if I'm missing out on stuff. So one of the things that my wife and I really enjoy is a show that airs on NBC called This Is Us. And there are multiple reasons why we love this. And one of the things that I just geek out on this show, just the way that the storylines are interwoven over different stretches of time. I mean, this is a little bit of a spoiler from the first season, but they're well into the second season, so I'm just gonna tell you about this here. So these, so the folks on the left are the parents, and the male and the female in the middle shot are twin brothers. They were twins, sister and brother, and then the man on the far right is their adopted brother. And so the heavyset gal in the middle, the guy with the peach fuzz on his face in the middle, and the African American guy, they are all siblings, and so this of course is a big deal. This is a big deal for my wife and I, because we have actually we've wanted a family for a long time, and we haven't been able to make it happen until we adopted our little son Levi, who his birth mother is white and his birth father is black. He is mixed race, and we are, as you can tell, we're about as white as it gets. So that's a whole learning curve as of right there. But so This Is Us talks about a lot about race and adoption, and the idea, but just the idea of like what happens to you as kids and what happens to you as an adult, and how those interrelate, and just the way that they tell these stories and they weave everything together. It is so cool. Just I'm at jaws on the floor every time. So let's see what some of you folks like. Okay. Howdy everyone. What's update? Watch J.J. Abrams' TED Talk on the Mystery Box. You know, that is absolutely, What's Update says, now I'm convinced the mystery is the best part. Yes, that is a big deal. That is a big deal to be able to keep people wondering, and to be okay with people saying, it's like, well, no, you don't have to have all the answers. Going to be talking a little bit about that down the road. Hamid says, hi. What's up, Hamid? Howdy. And Lewis, howdy Lewis. Secret Weapon is your audiobook. If anyone hasn't gotten it, I promise you won't regret it. Awesome. Actually, and if any, I will say, well, heck, 1 second here. This is the closest thing I've done to an unboxing so far. But this is a copy of my book. It's called Edit Better, Hollywood Tested Strategies for Powerful Video Editing. And I wrote it back in 2014, and it was focused more on people. Well, it was focused to a different target audience than Story Greenlight is at the moment. But if you already have a decent idea of what editing is, and you really want to go up to the next level, that book is awesome. And it's not just me saying it, it's people like Lewis saying it. So there's a link. If you want to get a copy of the book, there's a link in the description of this stream. Thank you, Lewis. Detectorists, says Arnie Jacobson, British TV. Very cool. I'm not familiar with it. Arnie, where does that, I mean, is it available over here across the pond? I'd be curious to know. What's Update says, I love Game of Thrones and Walking Dead. I love the imagination, and I think the imagination and the intrigue really draw me in, but the cool vibes from epic imagery and high quality sound seal the deal. Yeah, those shows are the total package for sure. I mean, come on, you have dragons and zombies. I mean, end of story. It's epic and it's outrageous. It's crazy. I mean, it says I do the same thing like you on radio. What's Update? Cute family. Why, thank you. Raising Crazies says, we have adopted 3 black children and 3 bio children. We are white, I guess, and need to watch that show. Yes! Don't even think twice, Raising Crazies. Yes. That, you think it's awkward in certain parts of the United States, being a mixed race family? Now, try putting that back in the 70s and the 80s when some of these storylines take place. It's awesome. So cool, and it's written in a really genuine way. It's not trying to be cutesy. So I really, really appreciate that. Quirky, it's on Acorn. View from above, second of the book is great. Why, thank you. Sang Lin, you're awesome. Thank you, Sang. Okay. Arnie says, you have to have a quirky sense of humor for detectorists. Okay, well, sounds British, which I'm down. Hey, Peter. He says, Jeff, Lost was great. Have you seen it? You know what? That falls in my void of, it's like I never actually got sucked into it. I never got on the Lost train to begin with. And it just ran and ran and ran, and everyone was like, holy crap, this is incredible, this is amazing. There's clouds, and there's ghosts, and there's time travel, and there's monsters, and it's great. And I've never got into it. Sorry, what's update? Internet is flaking. Catch the replay. Well, glad you're here so far. And I'll catch you later on the replay. And actually, if any of you do end up needing to head out, and you still have questions that you want to ask on the replay, definitely drop a comment below, because I do check those out and I do everything possible to answer those questions. CJ says, hello, what up? How's the fishing, man? Hope things going well for you. So let's dig into this. Let's talk about the storyteller's secret weapon. So much, well, and actually, before I do that, before we do that, the thing is, so much of what sucks us in, stand by, grabbing something here. My prep time was slightly rushed today. Aha, here it is. I'm genuinely under a deadline with my cutting today, and so there's a slim possibility that there could be a producer knocking on my door saying, dude, we know it's lunchtime, but we need you to be editing. But you know what, we're in good shape. We'll be cool. So much of what sucks you in, beyond epic imagery, or, well, actually, even just like that, so much of the things that suck us into storytelling are, there's either the storytelling itself, like This Is Us, there are the issues that the things address, there are the style that the shows, there's the style that the shows have, either editorially or content-wise. There's the sense of humor, and it's all about what the audience wants, what the audience expects, and how to give that to them. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to be engaging with ourselves in our own content. And there is a whole list of questions that I ask myself all the time, and I put them together in this checklist. It is as of right now, it's got 27 questions. You can literally put it up on your wall if you want, and it will change the way you think about your content creation. And I know this because it continues to change the way I think about the stuff that I'm doing. So if you want to get a copy of that, you can get it for free. There's a link to download that in the description below. So, in case you have not already gotten that, which I happen to know a number of you on the stream and on the replay already have. So let's dig into this here. We're talking about the storyteller's secret weapon. And the idea is, how do we create change on purpose? And no, this is not the secret weapon. So we're getting to it. Just be patient, I promise. So if you're new to Story Greenlight, this will probably not be, actually, if you've been around Story Greenlight for a while, this will not be brand new news to you, what I'm about to say, but it's important that we're all on the same page. Because if, in case you're new here on the live stream or on the replay, here is some groundwork. Now, one of the best ways to connect with your audience and to turn up the impact of your work, which is one of the primary reasons that Story Greenlight exists, is to help you do that. One of the best ways to do that is to use storytelling concepts in your content, even if you don't think your content lends itself specifically to storytelling. It's like, well, I don't do vlogs. Well, that's totally cool. I mean, like, you can have a DIY channel, you can have a makeup channel, you can have a hair channel, you can have a home remodeling channel. You can be doing any number of different things. But when you start layering in story elements, all of a sudden your audience starts to resonate. They connect. They understand in a new way. And this is not a mistake. This is not by accident, because we are human beings. We are all story driven, and it affects everything that we do. So the question becomes, exactly what is a story? So this is what a story is. This is my definition of what a story is, compiled from multiple sources, including the work of Donald Miller in his book, A Million Miles in a Thousand Years. Highly recommend it. Here's what I've added to it. A story is where a character wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. The power of story comes from change. It comes from that last part. It's all about that transformation. We have a deeply rooted need to change, to go from point 1 to point 2, to start where we are and go to where we want to be. And that's what stories do. They talk to change. And so when you talk about this, that's where this storyteller's secret weapon comes in. It is the way that you create that transformation as a result. It's the way you start digging in and making it happen. And it's called the story arc. This is the secret weapon right here. Now, the thing is, here's the difference between story, and here is the difference between a story arc. When you talk about, tell me a story, what you're saying is, tell me what happened. When you talk about, tell me the story arc, you're saying, tell me what changed. So I'll say that again. Tell me a story equals, here's what happened. Tell me the story arc is, here's what changed. And when you do that, that's when the deeply rooted elements of the story really start to take hold. Now, this idea of change and taking an arc that goes from one place to another, this can happen in two main ways. It could actually happen in three, but we're just going to be talking about two of them right now. It can happen in an external way. It can happen in an internal way. So, for example, spoiler alert, more spoilers, today's spoiler day. If you've not seen the original Star Wars movies, I'm going to put some spoilers in here, but the fact of the matter is, they've been out for almost 40 years, so come on, let's just do this. So, let's talk about this. So, here is the Death Star from the original Star Wars movies. Well, actually, from the Star Wars movies, just in general. And so what do you think the external arc would be for this Death Star? Basically, it is the Empire builds a Death Star. The Death Star blows up a planet. The Rebel Alliance comes together and destroys the Death Star, and it blows up. That is the external story arc. That's the external story arc of the Death Star. It got built, it destroyed stuff, and it got blown up. Now, let's talk about these guys. Let's talk about an internal transformation here. So you have Luke Skywalker being mentored by the person with green fuzzy ears that talks in reverse. I really wish I could drop a Yoda line. Nothing is coming to me at the moment. What can I say? So here we have with Luke Skywalker, you have the internal change where he begins as a restless, insecure orphan, and he dreams of joining the Alliance. He faces and overcomes his fears and becomes a member of that Rebel Alliance and becomes the person who blows up this thing here. But the thing is, it's all about what happened inside Luke. It's what he wants, what he dreams of doing, what he doesn't feel like he's capable of doing. I mean, it's like with that scene in the swamp with Yoda, and Yoda says, "Use the Force, you must." And Luke says, "It's like, well, okay, I'll try." And Yoda's like, "Do or do not. There is no try." I mean, that's internal stuff. That's heavy, heavy internal stuff. That is like life lesson stuff right there. So that's an example of external versus internal story arc in a movie. Before I move on, I'm going to check in on your comments. Raising Crazy says, I just went back to Lost with 11 and 12-year-olds and they loved it too. Cool. Peter says, and you still need to wait for my 1-year-old. Fair enough. Lewis says, favorite series was the first Criminal Minds. Very cool. Prison Break, that was cool too. Yeah. I've heard both of those things. I don't watch all of Jake Paul's videos, but the ways Eder edits, he really hooks you if you have a short attention span. Yeah, this is true. And that's one of the main reasons why Jake Paul has millions of subscribers like he does. And I will confess, I don't have much familiarity with Jake Paul. I should learn more about him. But yes, very cool, very cool. So we're talking about external and internal story arcs within a movie scenario. Here is an external and internal arc from a personal level. A little bit about my background. Externally, my wife and I got married, and we started. We went to Greece. And we went to Greece for our honeymoon, and that was incredible. We went to the Santorini Island, and we were traveling all around. We were doing cool things. And then our external arc changed to include this guy. And so now the external arc is Jeff and Chantel got married. Jeff and Chantel wanted to have kids. Couldn't have kids for about 5 or 6 years, so we finally ended up adopting our little guy Levi. So that's the external thing. But the interesting thing is, for myself personally, there is a significant, there is a huge internal story arc that is happening very much real time for me, because basically, it's the idea of what it means to be colorblind. And I was raised, just so you know, it's like I was raised with my own story in a very, very conservative Christian upbringing in the Midwest US. And basically everyone, everywhere was white. I did not see or talk to anyone that was not white. And so the thing that I learned from the society around me growing up was that you should treat everyone with respect. You should treat everyone equally, and that's why it's important to be colorblind. And what I've come to realize is, I've come to believe personally that the idea of being colorblind, I have found it for myself to be a bit of a cop-out, because it's really easy for me to say that I'm colorblind if I'm around everyone who looks exactly like me. But man, when you start talking with folks who don't look like you, who don't have the same skin color as you, man, there is a whole world of realizations, frankly, of me realizing that I have had an incredibly, incredibly good life, and a lot of that is due to the color of my skin and the fact that I'm male, not female. I am not in any way ashamed of the fact that I'm white or that I'm a male. The thing is, though, I would be fooling myself if I said that this was not a thing. So it's like, so this is my internal transformation, like what's in my head. The idea of being colorblind is, the idea of colorblind doesn't really work when you have a young guy who, when he gets, like, he's adorable right now, but man, he is going to turn into a young boy and a young man. He will be viewed by the rest of society as a black man, and if he comes into the back patio of our house and sneaks in the back door because he's locked out the front and the wrong person sees him, they will call him. They will call the cops on him, even though it's his house. There are articles like that happening all the time. So I am learning. There is a lot that I'm learning. There's a lot that I don't know. So had some really cool conversations and comments in previous streams with some folks who are willing to engage with this. So if this is something on your mind, or if you have some thoughts on what I'm saying, I would love to hear what you have to say. What do you have to think? And actually, if you're interested in the idea of adoption, my wife, Chantel, writes a blog about that. It's called Our Family Ever After. If you go to ourfamilyeverafter.com, I believe there's a link down there right now. Let me just double check. Yes, the link is there. So if you are curious about the idea of adoption or raising a mixed race child, she talks about that. So here is another example of, okay, actually, backing up. So that's the idea of external story arcs versus internal story arcs. Both of them work. But the stuff that really connects with people is when the change happens inside you. The internal stuff, that's what's really powerful, when people start in one place and they go to the other. I'm going to check in on your thoughts. Tom Who? No, really, you don't need to learn anything about Jake Paul. Well, okay, I'll take a look. I'll see what's going on. Tony Young, do you think a 3-act structure is necessary for good storytelling? Yes, asterisk. Here's the thing. It is the 3-act structure is the classic framework that is used to. It's the superstructure of stories, and it is used all day, every day by storytellers. And the thing is, especially when you're talking about online content on YouTube, you do not have to have a 3-act structure for every single story that you tell. I mean, like if you're recounting a story to a friend, you don't have to have the inciting incident. You don't have to have the rising action. You don't have to have all that stuff. I mean, really, what most stories get along with is 3 things. It's the beginning, middle, and the end. And that's what that 3-act structure boils down to. But even so, you don't necessarily have to have that. You can have something that's just like absolutely incredible. It's a spectacle, just like, holy moly, you must watch this. You cannot stop watching this. You can have people who have crazy personalities and they're just like barreling forward talking about their personalities, and that's what keeps people sucked in. So here's the kicker to that though. With 3-act structure, well, if you're not using classic story structure in your storytelling, you can get away with that if your stuff is short. But the longer that your story goes, the more important it is to use that 3-act structure, because otherwise it gets really, really difficult to hold people's attention. So that's my thought on that for the moment. Big G Media. I worked at a place that hired a guy for graphic design. After 3 weeks of getting comps off, he confessed to being colorblind. The whole thing was not cool. I don't quite follow what you're talking about. I'd be curious to know more. Lewis, I'm actually happy that you're sharing your insights. Thank you, man. I'm learning, and it is very much real time. Raising Crazies. You should demonstrate storytelling with an adoption story video. That could work. We could end up doing that. Moss Family TV, trying to figure out how to incorporate storytelling into my daily vlogs. Awesome. Fantastic. And and the thing is, it doesn't have to be crazy involved, like 18,000 point hero's journey, 3-act structure, all these different elements. You don't have to follow the formula. Just start adding elements. Find a character who wants something, put obstacles in their way, and then see what happens. Also, Tom says, I've also seen 3-act structures stated as conflict, as setup, conflict, tension, and resolution. Absolutely. Spot on. Okay, so talking about, here's the next idea. When we are talking about story arcs, we can have them be external in nature, we can have them be internal in nature. Change then also happens. Change also, that these arcs, they can be very small, they can be a short amount of time, they can unfold over multiple episodes, over multiple years, over an entire lifetime. And that's the beauty about this stuff. It's all, you can fit storylines into storylines, into storylines, into storylines. It's like those nesting Russian Matryoshka dolls. It's like there's a great big doll, and you open it up, and there's another one inside, and there's another one inside, and another one inside. It's kind of cool. You can do that with your different storylines. So here are some examples of people who are doing this. So one of our Story Greenlight community members, a gal by the name of Jay Musa, and she is a filmmaker from the UK, and she is basically, her channel is talking about how she is putting together her first feature film, and it is a musical that she's writing, I believe. And so every video that she puts up, it's a mini episode. But ideally, you have story structure within each episode, but then there's this overarching idea. Like the overarching story arc is, we are putting together this huge, highly involved, complex project, and how is it going to end? We don't know how it's going to end. So that's one of the things that you can do with your storytelling. It's like when you have an overarching idea that lives beyond just each episode. Like if you are doing vlogs, well, here's an example. I've talked about these guys before. Tim Schmoyer, who many of you know as the founder of Video Creators, he and his wife Dana have a family vlog called, their channel is called Schmovies, and this still is actually a couple months old now. They cracked the 100,000 subscriber mark, and it was a party, and it was very cool. So congratulations to the Schmoyers on that, because they're telling really cool stories. And what they do is they say, okay, today we're going to the dentist, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening in that episode. Or, hey, today we're talking about homeschooling, and that's that episode. But what happens is Tim and Dana always sit down and they say, hey, here's what we want. Here's what we're looking to accomplish long term. Here's why we homeschool, or here's why, here's the story, the history behind going to the dentist, or whatever. And their whole thing is, we want our family and our large group of children to grow together as a team. That's their overarching theme. And so that's how they can shape their ongoing story arcs on the big scale. Let's see. Let's check in on your comments. Tom, Lewis says, Tom is talking about relationship with his editor. He does his videos. Love to learn how the same guy edits 500 vlogs every single day. Tim is the best, says Peter. I'm a fan of Tim Schmoyer. He's a very cool guy. He's been very generous in verbalizing his support for what Story Greenlight is doing. I like to think, says a view from above, I like to think that when people say their life is a roller coaster, it's a series of story arcs happening in succession. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, and that's one of the things. It's you have to have dips and valleys, because if you're constantly going up, 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 or you're constantly going down, 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 that either way, that becomes a challenge to sustain that, number one, and number two, it becomes exhausting to live it. Especially if you're continually going down, 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 and you're just like, oh, why will nothing go right? And it's just like it. That's the kind of stuff where there are no easy answers. But yeah, I would agree. We are living story arcs, and that's the whole thing. One of the things Donald Miller talks about, and I don't have a still for this. Donald Miller is an author who he wrote a book called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, and the subtitle is, I believe they changed it from the original one, but basically the subtitle is How I Learned to Live a Better Story. And his whole thesis in that book is that so many of us we find dissatisfaction in our lives because our stories suck. Our stories are boring. Why do you think so many people live? Why do you think so many people live to come home at night and turn on the TV so they can escape into some other story? It's because they're not living anything exciting that keeps them engaged in real life. Now that's broad strokes, doesn't necessarily apply to absolutely everyone, but in broad strokes, man, why is there so much escapism? Why is there so much drug abuse? Why is there so much consumption of alcohol? Why is there so much like people who have like adrenaline junkies, or I mean, like they're looking for the next high. Now, I'm not saying that any of these things are negative necessarily in and of themselves, although you might want to be careful about consuming illegal drugs, because that can get you into trouble. But so much of it boils down to, heck, even overeating food, so much of it comes down to we're wanting to escape. We're wanting to feel good. And I'm convinced myself that were we as characters living our lives to step forward into something greater than what we're doing, if we want something, and if we want something, and that's something that drives us forward to get it, if it's something big enough, there will be obstacles, and then that challenges us to get into what we're doing and to overcome the obstacles. And all of a sudden, we are characters living out a story, characters who want something, overcoming obstacles, and in that process, we do find that we change. Our lives change. So, if you haven't seen, if you're not familiar with that book, 1,000 Miles in a Million Years, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, highly recommend it. I will make sure I get a link to that below. Link to Miller book. Cool. All right. Now, double checking comments here. Lewis, how can I tell stories about where I live, Vancouver, the town, the people, the food, and everything in between? Well, and Lewis says, I really like how you explain things. It really helps understand. Cool, man. Glad it's helpful. I'm starting to get a grasp of telling stories. Are you able to still tell stories that don't end the way you hoped? 100% yes. To your comments about how do I tell people about, how do I tell stories about Vancouver? You, my friend, go here. You, now your character doesn't necessarily have to be a person. Heck, man, your character can be the city of Vancouver if you want, or it can be a part of Vancouver, or a neighborhood in Vancouver, or it can be your favorite coffee shop in Vancouver or whatever. I mean, it's about taking a character that wants something and runs into roadblocks. And then to your second comment, the idea of is it still possible to tell stories when you don't know the ending? 100% yes, because that is what real life is. I mean, oh, whoops. Sorry, kind of got to get this back here. Okay, I was flailing around, and now I got stuck. My train of thought just completely derailed. But yeah, I mean, like the idea of telling stories that you don't know the ending. Well, actually, I did do a video on that called "How to Vlog When You Don't Know the Ending." There is a link to that in the description below. Any folks who are interested in the idea of that, it's like how to tell stories when you don't know the ending. Got some ideas going on in that video. Hope you'll enjoy that. Make sure you check that out. For our discussion here, I mean, you have to be open for looking for something that might work as an ending or a temporary pause point for your story in whatever form that you're putting it together. So if you're talking about, say you're talking about your favorite coffee shop in Vancouver, and you're doing this over multiple episodes of your vlog, or then you need to have different chunks of story that happen in each vlog, but that makes sense as a continuous whole. But you will not always know how things end, because that's just the way life is. So the question then becomes, what is the transformation? What is the story arc in the character, or maybe in you, or maybe in other people? What is the story arc? What is the story arc externally? But even more importantly, what is the arc internally? Because that's where people want to go. They want to see change happen inside. That's some powerful stuff there. I'd be curious to know. I'd be curious to hear what you think about that. I feel like I was Big G Media. I feel most mainstream movies now exactly have the same arc pacing, especially love stories. You can predict almost to a minute each part of the arc. It's boring. You know what? You are not making things up. There is a reason why this stuff happens, because the formula works, Big G Media. The formula works, and the entities that put out TV and movies, their number one goal in life is not to tell stories. If you are a movie studio, your number one goal in life is to make money for the people who own you. And might sound crass, but that's the way the business works. That's why it's called show business. It's about making money. And the thing is now, it's incredibly difficult to get enough eyeballs on a movie or a huge TV show. It's hard to do that just in general, and doing it takes a lot of money. So they're like, okay, if we're going to put this kind of coin into this kind of a product, you better guarantee that this stuff is going to work. Otherwise there will be hell to pay. And that's why people in decision-making positions in movie and television networks, they do not want under any circumstance to take risk, because risk means they might lose money. And this is why commercially produced stories follow the same arc. They follow that same storyline because it works. It's what people in our Western culture have come to expect. So that's why it's all the more important for us as content creators to tell stories that do mirror real life, that maybe don't end exactly as everyone might want. But man, when we get the right audience connecting with us, the stories that we're telling, man, that's when, back to the whole mission of Story Greenlight, I mean, that's when you make those huge connections with your audience. They say, I care about this stuff. I care about this change. Your stories are leaving a mark on my heart and mind. So absolutely, that is why it's so important that you and I continue telling our stories. I'm actually going to check up I'm going to check in on your comments one more. They have the best people writing, and it is 2 movies. Trying to come up with different ways to tell our upcoming travel videos. It's too commonplace to start in the morning, then describe the day, and finally end the day, says Arnie Jacobson. You know, here's the thing though. It's easy to say that arcs can be predictable, which they can be if you rely on them too much and everything follows the cookie cutter pattern every single time. But here's the other thing. Structure gives the opportunity for creative freedom. Limitations are the obstacle in which creativity flourishes. So for instance, on your travel videos, there is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with structuring your videos. They say, hey, here's day 1, morning, noon, evening. But the question then becomes, it's like, what's happening in the middle of that? That's the foundation. That's the external arc. Morning, noon, evening. That makes people feel comfortable. Why not use that? It's all good. Here's the thing though. What is the other layer that goes on top of that? That's where the creativity comes in. So for instance, like if you're going to Paris and you're saying, it's like, okay, well, what is the city like in the morning and at noon and in the evening? What do you find there at the different times? What do you notice? What's different? What changes? What kind of different people are in there at the different times of the day? Or things like that. It's like you need to look for another layer to go on top of that foundational external framework for that external arc. If you can add a level of internal transformation, I expected X and I ended up seeing Y. That's where people start to get sucked in. So just kind of spitballing there, Arnie. I would say, number 1, don't worry about sticking to a tried and true structure. It's just about what you layer on top of it. Big G, yes, but isn't cookie cutter a risk in itself? Yes, it is. However, the cookie cutter formula works. You can take that to the bank. So there you have it. The studios want to make money. This is why they use cookie cutter storylines. View from above. How to structure a story and how you tell it don't necessarily have to be the same. Think about the film Memento. Absolutely. I mean, the rabbit hole goes down, way down. And there's all kinds of ways to tell stories creatively. And that's why storytelling is something that takes a moment to learn. Heck, pull out your phone, hit the record, hit upload to YouTube, and ta-da, you have created content and you've released it to the world. It takes a moment to learn, but a lifetime to master. So that's the challenge. And I freaking love that challenge. High-tech tube. Making all the layers the best they can be seems to be the difference between mediocre and good films. That's one of the big differences, I will say. Well, and see, these ideas of story and change and thinking about what is creativity, what will my audience want, what will they respond to, those answers only come when you ask the right questions. And so that's why I'm going to pull this out again. If you've not gotten a copy of this, there's a link in the description below. You need to get a copy of that because it will start asking these big picture questions about, okay, how can I take things and make them more of what I want them to be? How can my content creation experience the internal and the external story arc from starting where we are and going to where we want it to be? That's what I want to see happen in your content creation. That's what I want to see happen in your and my life. I want us all to be living awesome stories. So one more chance. YouTube has fresh content, says Big G Media. Studios must find that threatening. Studios are freaked out about entities like Netflix and YouTube. Less so Hulu, but Hulu and Amazon, like all these folks, because they've broken the mold. They have gone outside the studio/network system. They have disrupted, they have rocked the boat, and the networks are scared out of their minds that their boats are about to tip over. Which, as far as we're concerned, is great, because that means that there's more room for people like us to tell stories and to connect with an audience of our own. Folks, I'm going to jump back into the edit here. There's TV that needs to be made. There are producers breathing me down my neck. So I'm just going to say I've really enjoyed hanging out here. If you're seeing this on the replay and you have more questions, or if you have more questions and you were here on the live stream, drop a comment below. Love to hear what you think. Let's keep talking about this. And in the meantime, I'm Jeff Bartsch, and this is Story Greenlight. And make sure that you keep telling your stories, because your stories matter, you matter, and the world needs to hear what you have to say. I'll catch you later.